What is the most ridiculous / effed up lie your parents told you? My dad got fed up with watching Barney the dinosaur when I was a kid, and one day when I asked to watch it, he said, "You can't, why?" "Because Barney died. I never did watch Barney again." What killed Barney? The Ice Age. What killed the football? The Ice Age. What killed the Ice Age? The dinosaurs. That if I didn't brush my teeth, tiny teeth goblins would sneak into my room at night and pull out my teeth while I slept. I was genuinely afraid of the teeth goblins. Original poster replies: Did you believe in the tooth fairy? If so, how did you feel about it? I didn't have a problem with the tooth fairy because at least she paid me for my teeth and didn't yank them out herself. Not too effed up, but ridiculous. When I was little, my mom told me if I didn't finish my dinner my stomach would get very hungry and come up and eat my brain. A few nights later I woke her up at midnight crying because my stomach growled and I needed a second dinner or it would eat my brain. You just gave me a really weird flashback to when I was a kid and I had to have my kidney taken out because it was obstructed and was making me ill. I couldn't have solid food for a few days after the surgery, so my parents bought a bunch of supermarket ready meals. I even remember the brand. It was Blue Parrot Cafe, and ran them through the blender into a paste for me to eat. Problem was, I really liked it, so I would keep asking for these Blitz ready meals for months afterwards. They eventually made them a treat, so if I was good, I could have the food paste for tea. I love how this plan horribly backfired on her, laughing out loud. As a parent, I would literally never stop kicking myself for this F-up. What makes it even worse is the first time you tell a child something, they assume that's the truth and lock it in. Something silly like this said in passing can take days if not weeks to reverse. A lot more tame than the other ones here, but my mum once told me not to sleep on my left cause that causes pressure on your heart. Not sure how true that was, but I was nervous for years whenever I had to sleep on my left side. My siblings and I had a sister named Alice. Apparently she wouldn't stop talking in the car, so they dropped her off on the side of the road. Never spoke on road trips ever again. My parents had a similar thing. They would threaten to leave myself and my brother at a bad boys' school ran by Mrs. Mullins if we didn't behave in the car. You can imagine my trepidation when I got to secondary school and my teacher was named Mrs. Mullins. My dad told me exactly the same thing. He said I had an older sister named Matilda, but she kept screaming in the car, so he dropped her off at the side of the road and left her there. It didn't stop me screaming in the car until one day he actually stopped the car and told me to get out. He only drove 10 m away, but I never screamed in the car again. My mom would do this in general while we were going places. She would make us 3 kids run behind the car. We lived in the middle of nowhere, and she would get mad at us and tell us to get out, and then drive off. We would try to keep up, but she was obviously gone. She'd go a few concession roads away and wait at a stop sign. We would be so glad to get in the car that we stayed quiet and didn't say a word the whole way home. Around the time Toy Story first came out, my dad drove an Infiniti, and he told us that he could press a button and go to infinity and beyond to jump over other cars. He'd have us close our eyes and press the button, and he'd speed up and pass the car in front of us while our eyes were closed. As a kid I was DUMBFOUNDED and thought he was magic. It's actually a nice memory compared to the other ones on here, laughing out loud. My dad told us, my brother and I, that he could tell what card we were holding just by looking at the back of it. So we would hold up a card from the deck, we would hide it from him, we got creative, trying to trick him, and he would still be able to tell us which card it was. I remember spending hours with my brother in a magnifier trying to figure out how he could tell which card we were holding up. In my 30s my mother finally admitted that she was always standing behind us and telling him. We had no idea she would betray us. It's one of the good memories of him, thankfully. There's a lot of bad ones, but that one always makes me smile. Edit. Removed a typo. Had a somewhat abusive father growing up. Only bone I ever broke was his handiwork. Both he and my mother insist to this day that it never happened. That I broke my foot in a marching band accident. Must have just slipped my mind. Wasn't surprised when the term gaslighting became more prevalent in society. Remember, we discussed, few years ago, and we've been planning for it, that you'll stay in the nursing home for now. When I was a kid, my father told me about the can. He said it contained a family secret of incredible value, and that when I turned 18 I could see it. On my 18th birthday I asked my father about the can. He said, "The F is the can?" And after I reminded him of it, he burst out laughing, saying that he was effing with me. For almost a decade I believed that I would be privy to some cosmic secret on my 18th birthday. Turns out I'm just very impressionable. Show us THE_IOTA_CAN. Forgive me, Father, for I must gaze upon THE Cecilia ring and tilde. My dad died in a car accident a few years ago. Until this day my mom says that he is still on vacation. I don't know if it is a coping method for her, but I haven't said anything about it. Wow, I'm sorry to hear, that can't be easy. I hope your mom has sought some counseling in the aftermath of everything. Losing a parent or spouse suddenly is a seriously traumatic thing, and it may have crossed some wires. We used to have a farm when I was a kid. My uncle gave me few hens he had, and I told my dad that I want them to have baby chicks and sell them. He told me, "We need to buy you a rooster for your hens." I said, "Why?" "They lay eggs, and they don't need to have a male around." He told me the eggs won't be fertile and will never hatch. But what can a rooster do to make it hatch? He picks the back of their necks. Well, I can do that with a needle every day, and then he farts in their butts. The worst part I remember is me running to my mom after we went home to tell her about my recent discovery. I lived with my grandma until I was 16. My mom is currently telling me that never happened, and she never left me with grandma. I guess I imagine my entire childhood. Editing to add, lived with doesn't do it justice. Grandma raised me. I alternated weekends between my mom and dad, but I'm sure her 4 days a month are made up too. Don't give in. Even jokingly. It's what she wants. I won't. I've always given in for fear of her abandoning me again, but this time I've sought out some therapy and I've realized not talking to her is a healthy boundary. If I'm not in her life, she won't have to give her newest boyfriend's family a fake song and dance about grandma being a kidnapper to explain why she didn't raise me but raised my half-siblings. My eyes turn orange when I lie. So I covered my eyes when I lied so my mom couldn't see them turn fucking orange. That's actually really smart of your mom. My dad would say, "I'm going to ask you a question, but keep in mind, I already know the answer." It worked. My child mind freaked out knowing there was a 50-50 shot, and if I guessed wrong I'd be grounded from the TV, laughing out loud. The panicked silence told him all he needed to know. Edit. Of course, my most upvoted comment is about my dad's parenting methods. He'd be proud. Solid dude who raised 2 kids while working 4 different jobs after my mom bounced. Shout out to Dad. That it's illegal to turn the light on in the car while driving. My mom lied about my father's death for 9 years until my brother posted the anniversary of him hanging himself. He's my half-brother, same dad, different mom. Jesus. A lot of these are sad, so here's a silly nice one. My birthday is the 11th of July. The gas station 7-Eleven gives away free slushies on July 11th. At 7, 8, and 9 years old, my parents just told me that the 7-Eleven wanted to celebrate my birthday by giving me free slushies, and I did not question it. I thought the gas station just really liked me. In a similar vein, my name starts with a K, and when I was little my town had a Kmart that had a giant neon red K outside it. They told me the K was there just for me, and some nights they'd drive me over to look at my K all lit up. That backfired a bit when the Kmart went out of business and that giant K went dark. Gaslighting. About obviously wrong or easily disputable things. Like, I hated the babysitter I had from age 3 to 4. She was a bitch who favored boys and didn't much like me either. I was an easygoing kid, but I hated her. My mother insisted all the ways through college that I loved this woman. We'd go back to visit my hometown, and she'd force me to skip seeing my friends to visit this lady. At 16, these visits would go something like, "Hi. Oh, it's you." And then she'd ignore me and talk to my mother while I stared at a wall and nodded politely until we could leave. My mother doubled down on this every time I disagreed until one visit back to the church we used to attend, social center of small towns, this lady saw my mother coming and began the conversation with, "Wasn't it funny how much your daughter and I always hated each other? I only watch little boys these days. Can't stand girls." My mom briefly attempted to convince both of us that we shared fond memories, but by that point we were approaching 20 years of mutual dislike. It was a bit absurd. I don't know what's worse. Your babysitter is a huge bitch or your mom is delusional. Both. If I acted up, my mom would say she was sending me to the hospital to be put down. It really effed me up. She even drove a sobbing, puking me to the hospital to be put down one day. She said she would give me a second chance and didn't take me in. So sorry. My mom did almost the same thing to my sister and I throughout our whole childhood and into the teen years. She would drive us to random huge nondescript buildings, screaming the whole time, claiming that it was the orphanage and that she was getting rid of us. Sometimes she would get out and physically pull our arms, trying to rip us out of the car. If she was near the police station, she would try it there too, telling us we were horrible kids and that the cops would understand and take us away from her. Which was super bold to me. It's a shame she never got caught in the act of using her kids. Would have been an ironic turnaround if at the police station she got arrested and you guys went to an orphanage, BC, no parents. My dad once told me if I didn't say a single word the whole way home, he'd take me to Arby's. In the driveway, I came to the realization that we couldn't go to Arby's, as we were home. Me, "We're not going, are we?" Him, "Well, you talked just now, so guess not." Edit. A lot of people are hating on my dad, so I'm going to add some relevant context. 1. He's not in butthole. He's always been a great dad. 2. He was deployed overseas and was only able to visit us once a year, for about 2 weeks at a time. 3. I only begged for Arby's if my mom made casserole, which was my dad's favorite dish and my least favorite. It had mushrooms, which 14-year-old me hated. While deployed, he ate a lot of subpar food. Those 2 weeks were the only time he could eat real, homemade cooking, whereas I got it every day. Of course he wouldn't want to take his kids to fast food when we could have a real meal together. 4. He explained these facts to me every time after my Arby's tantrums. I was often too young, and bratty, to acknowledge his sacrifices. Don't hate on my dad, please. He's a stellar guy. I meant the above story to be humorous. My parents told me we had to leave the zoo because they let the animals out at closing time. Reading these comments, thinking that having one alcoholic parent feels normal now because y'all have messed up childhoods. When I was younger, I learned that mushrooms were a fungus and refused to eat them. My dad made me some soup with mushrooms in it and I threw a fit about eating it, so he inspected the bowl and told me they were whale toes. Apparently I was old enough to know that mushrooms were a fungus but not old enough to know that whales didn't have feet. But you would rather eat whale toes rather than mushrooms? Laughing out loud. Just remind them of that near when it's time to put them in a home. I'm so sorry for your loss. If I eat too much Halloween candy, I will turn into an Oompa Loompa. My mom told me I had prostate cancer once when I was around 11. I'm a female. When my dad wanted me to stop bothering him, he would send me on aimless errands. Go to the shed and get me the chain stretcher. I'd be looking for hours. Parents always claimed we were a poor family growing up, so didn't have money for sport clubs/hobbies or expensive school trips. Got older and realized it was due to the amount of money they would spend on weed. They still don't see it as an issue to this day. They told me kids came from a government agency called the CAA, Child Assignment Agency, and that they could exchange me whenever they want if I ever misbehaved. They told me they were eyeing a well-behaved little girl but hadn't decided yet. They used it against me for years. My cat died and my mom told me that he moved to Florida. Edit. Thank you for the awards. Teddy's ghost is very pleased with himself. He says, meow, which roughly translates to thanks a bunch. I hate it down here. It's not that effed up, but it's kind of a revenge story. When I was very young, my parents told me I couldn't get carbonated soft drinks cause they said it was bad for me and I could die. Mind you, I was an hyperactive kid at the time. At one point I got a genius idea. I lived with my mother and my father would pick me up every weekends. My plan was Friday evening when my father would pick me up, I would tell him Mom gave me Coca-Cola cause she said it's okay, you're going to your father's anyway, and at this moment my father accepted the fake challenge I have given him. The next Sunday evening my father gave me like a 1 liter of 7-Up just before dropping me off. So I was pretty excited. My mother asked me like, what's up with you? And I told her pretty much the same thing, Dad gave me 7-Up cause he said it's okay, you're going to your mother afterward anyway, and then my mom took on the challenge too. They never spoke about it out loud, it was kind of a war and I was the instruments. What they didn't know was that I was the evil mind behind it all. So all in all, I got my revenge. I got carbonated soft drinks and they never learned the truth until I told them years later. Holy F, this is some mastermind crap. My mom has severe bipolar disorder. She once told me she would never yell at me again after a huge meltdown when I was very young, like 5 or 6. I thought of that every time she ever yelled after that my whole life, which was at least every other day. It's just one of those things from childhood that always stuck with me. I was all of maybe 9 years old, but I was responsible for getting my younger sister up, ready and out the door for school in the morning. Maybe once a month, in a rush I would forget to set the alarm. Apparently this bothered my mom enough that she unexpectedly picked me up from school early one day. She told me that because I had forgotten to lock the door, the house had been robbed and all of our TVs and game systems had been stolen. She led me into my room, which for some reason was the only room in the house that had been trashed. She went on and on about how it was entirely my fault, I deserved this, how I was going to be working to pay off every stolen thing. After a few hours she let up that it was all just a setup to teach me not to forget set the alarm. She hid the electronics and trashed a 9-year-old's room to make a point. Anyways, I have severe general anxiety now. Your name is Stifler's mom? Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.